MakeAScene.org brings you Ticketmaster LiveNation court decision when the Gatekeeper finally got dragged into court.
Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to break down one of the biggest legal battles in the history of music. And it all starts with this question, right? We have all been there, staring at our screen, just wondering, how did we get here? But, according to MakeAScene.org, that feeling of frustration, it's just a symptom of something much, much bigger. Because the real story, the one that really matters, it's not actually about those insane service fees. No, it's about control. It's about who gets to control the venues, the tours, the fan data, and really the entire live music experience from top to bottom.
See, this was never just a customer service complaint. It's a structural problem. And that is exactly why the Department of Justice finally had to step in. So let's get into what this fight was really about.
Back in May of 2024, when the U.S. Department of Justice and 30 different states sued LiveNation, they weren't just complaining about high ticket prices. Their argument went way deeper. They said that the company's absolute control of the market was actively hurting everybody: fans, artists, and especially those smaller independent venues.
And that's the crucial point here. This was always framed as a fight for the little guy, for the artists, for competition itself, not just a quick fix to lower service fees. And to really hammer this point home, the government used this really powerful metaphor to describe LiveNation's business model. They called it a flywheel.
So what in the world is this flywheel? Well, think of it like this. It's a business model where every single part of the company, promotion, venues, ticketing, they all feed into each other. It creates this unstoppable, self-reinforcing cycle of dominance that just keeps getting stronger.
And here's exactly how it spins. First, you use your massive influence to lock up the biggest artists with exclusive promotion deals. Now that you have the hottest acts, you can go to the best venues and basically pressure them into signing these long-term exclusive contracts. And here's the kicker: those venues have to use Ticketmaster. That move alone brings in a tidal wave of revenue and, maybe even more important, a goldmine of fan data. All that cash and all that data, you just use it to go out and sign even more big artists, and the flywheel just spins faster and faster.
And when you see the result of that flywheel in action, wow, it is staggering. We're talking about an 80% market share for major concerts. 80%! The system wasn't just big, it was totally dominant. And that level of dominance is what finally dragged this whole thing into a courtroom.
But, this fight didn't just pop up in 2024. Oh no. This has been simmering below the surface for more than a decade.
I mean, this has been a long time coming. Right after the merger back in 2010, the government put rules in place to try and stop the company from abusing its power. But fast forward to 2019, and the Department of Justice was basically accusing them of breaking those rules over and over. This all finally boiled over with that huge 2024 lawsuit, which, let me tell you, took a really interesting turn in 2026.
Because that moment in March 2026, that was a massive turning point. The federal government, the DOJ, they settled for some, narrower fixes. Critics called it a half step. But a whole coalition of states, both Republican and Democrat, they stood up and said, nope, not good enough. They totally rejected the deal and decided to take their chances and push forward with the trial, because they felt the core monopoly was still being ignored. And that brave decision to keep fighting, it led to an absolutely dramatic climax just 1 month later. On April 15, 2026, a New York jury came back with a verdict that just sent shockwaves everywhere. They found that yes, LiveNation and Ticketmaster had maintained an illegal, anti-competitive monopoly.
Okay, so a jury says it's a monopoly. What now? What does this actually mean for everyone?
Well, for the independent music community, it was pure validation. They've been sounding the alarm on this for years. And the National Independent Venue Association, NIVA, they pretty much said it all with this quote. It was a confirmation of what they'd been saying all along.
So what about us, the fans? What does this actually mean for our wallets? Well, the answer there is a little complicated. I mean, let's be real. This verdict isn't some magic wand that's going to make tickets cheap overnight. There's so much that goes into ticket prices. The artists, the promoters, dynamic pricing, it's a whole thing.
So if ticket prices aren't just going to plummet tomorrow, then who does this verdict really truly help? Well, it turns out the biggest impact might actually be for the people creating the shows in the first place. This is really an artist's story.
You see, according to MakeAScene.org, the deepest wound from this whole system was one that fans never even saw. It was happening long before a single ticket went on sale. So this verdict, it's not just about saving you a few bucks. It's about pumping some much-needed oxygen back into the market, giving indie artists and promoters who've been squeezed out for years a little more room to breathe.
And that brings us to the crucial takeaway for artists. According to makingascene.org, the lesson here isn't to just sit back and wait for the courts to fix everything. No, it's about using this moment, this opportunity, to build your own power. That means building channels you control, owning your fan data, and realizing that a ticket sale isn't the end of the transaction. It's the very beginning of a deeper relationship with your supporters.
Look, the verdict didn't completely tear down the old system. It didn't solve everything in one fell swoop. But what it did do was create a massive crack in the foundation. It put this whole business model on trial and forced the entire industry to start imagining a world where one single gatekeeper doesn't get to write all the rules. So the real question now is, with that wall cracked, what will the artists and independents build in that new space? Make sure you check out the other great articles and resources on makingascene.org, the place the indie artist goes to build the new music industry.